Topic 2. As suggested by Lou, we're going to talk about our thoughts on episodic gaming content, where it works and where it doesn't, and more specifically, what we think of how the new Hitman game has gone episodic and is drip feeding its content to the fans. So, seeing as this was suggested by you, Lou, what are your thoughts more specifically on the Hitman thing? What has annoyed you, or what are your thoughts on it?
Let's see. It's an irritation to me. Now I can see why they do this episodic content. I can see why low budget indie developers might choose to do that. They've got limited budgets, but it's very irritating to me that large companies and big names are doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's what I was. It's what I was trying to lead it down, where it works and where it doesn't. I would agree with you. I think with AAA, it's a lot more dodgy ground because they're doing it to sort of play around with the business strategies as opposed to doing it because they think the game benefits from it, or they're, like you were saying, with indie developers on a tight budget, so they sort of have to do this.
Of course.
It's like with indies, it's either if you're having troubles with money, you either crowdsource, which can have its pitfalls, early access, which again can have its pitfalls, or episodic content. So I think sometimes for indies it's a preferable option to the other two. But as you're saying with AAA, with AAA it's not always as good. So what about
the same thing with
Hitman then?
Hitman in particular, and same with Resident Evil Revelations. It bugs me. Yeah. It really annoys me. I mean, if they were to put out one episode for people to trial, to see if they like a game, that's fair.
Yeah. Like a beta or something, like a beta test.
Sure. That's quite reasonable if it's something a little bit novel and they want to see if people want to do it. I do not want to play a game at their pace, ever.
Yeah. I think that's the problem with it is, for me, Hitman was always one of those things. Yeah, sure, maybe you only mess around with like one level for 2 or 3 hours, and that's your gaming session for that day. But then other times you binge through it and you want to do 3 or 4 levels in one go.
Sure.
And because it's got that replay value, you might play through those 4 levels, but then go back later and try different techniques and things.
Sure, it's something you'd like to do as a second playthrough of a game usually. It's not. It's not what you want to do the first time. Is play the same level for a month in different ways.
It's because you might be excited to go back on the second playthrough. Whereas if you know that's the only map, or maybe 1 or 2 maps you've got for a set amount of months, it's more like, oh well, I've got to go back to get my money's. You feel to get your money's worth, or to get invested in this game. You feel like you've got to go back as opposed to wanting to go back. So, and try different things.
I mean, as far as gamers are concerned, I think a lot of them will get bored by this, but I think the reason that the companies are latching onto it is because they will get advertising multiple times over as each episode is brought out, and that's what grabs them. That's what's interesting them.
I think they're taking it like social media and sort of things. If they can constantly stay in the zeitgeist throughout the year, and then at the end of the year have a collector's edition that they really push, and their physical copy, they're thinking, oh, we've got the best of all worlds, we can keep bringing that money in. But I've got a feeling that with it only really works for certain sorts of games, and I don't think they're going to end up more profitable doing this than they would have done if they'd have just sold one physical copy all in one go. So, games that it does work.
Keep adding DLC to something interesting, but you don't want to nibble at a game. It's not what most people want. You also hear a lot of things like they usually say they lose a lot of customers early on because the gaps in between. They'll play the first bit, start something else, and forget about it.
For me, it's just one of those things. I personally would just rather play that collector's edition because you take something like Destiny, for example. If you hadn't have played Destiny at the start like we did for year one, and just bought it at Taken King, like maybe a month after Taken King, so they'd fixed all the bugs, you'd have a much more enjoyable and engaging experience throughout that. All the bullshit will have got fixed. All the weird, crafting and like economies that were all out of whack would have got fixed. And I know this is different to something like Hitman, but it's a similar sort of thing. Like, the game's always better by that collector's edition. It's always improved. It's always the optimal experience. As opposed, I think also part of it is that they were late in development. So if they pushed through a couple of the maps early, they wouldn't have to delay the game for like 6 to 9 months or something, and to do it all in one go. So I think that's another reason.
I don't like this fixes as you go along. I want to buy a finished product.
No.
Would you buy any other product and be happy about them, like tweaking it and improving it as you went along?
Well, that was always the argument about Destiny Year One, is that you were paying for a beta. That's what people would always say, like snidely as a joke. But to some degree, I mean, we were making it better for the Johnny Come Latelys at the Taken King, and I wish I'd have been a Johnny Come Lately at that point, because if that was the case, who knows, I might still be playing that game now. But as it is, I left that game at Year One, and I have no interest in going back unless this Destiny 2.0 is like, they've really pushed the boundaries and done something different. Because to be fair, the Division and Destiny are, either with the Division it's exactly the game I expected, and with Destiny it's not the game I wished it had have been, because it had so much more potential for me. But probably getting off topic a little bit there. But
with titles like Hitman, though, what they're also doing is kind of screwing over the truly loyal fans, the people who are, really into a franchise. They are taking advantage of them because they can't help themselves. Like I almost did.
You're going to pay more. If you're a hardcore fan of Hitman, you're going to pay more. There's no doubt about it. By the time that collector's edition comes out, and if I decide to get that collector's edition, I'm going to have saved 10, maybe even £15, and get a better experience. There won't be bugs, all the fixes. There might even be extra free content put in there by the time I would come along to it. So for me, it's like, not being a hardcore fan, I'm the one getting the deal, but the hardcore fans are the people who are getting screwed. They're getting less for more for more of their money.
You're getting 10% of a game, but you're not paying 10% price. You're paying extra over the odds the whole time. And is it worth it to get it early? I'm in protest. I will not buy it until it comes out fully. I won't.
No.
And I hope that it doesn't work for them, so they stop it.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is it's owned by Square Enix now, and they made Life is Strange, and that was incredibly successful for them. But that's another point where episodic content and episodic games work, because it's story based, and it can work like that. It can work like a TV show, or something like that. It can work episodically because it's a story based thing. Same with the Telltale games. They work.
I played a bunch of those. I played Game of Thrones, and when I bought it, all of the first 5 episodes were out. And the 6th one didn't come out till something crazy. It was like at least 2 months, if not 3 months later, something like that. Now, I don't think that's what was promised, so it's fair to say that they don't stick to their deadlines or the release dates.
Well, they don't have deadlines. They're quite smart about that, Telltale. They don't put deadline or a release date out, because then they know that people will be going, well, where's this fucking game, and they're rushed for it, and they're spinning so many plates. There were so many games they're working on. So
but by the time the 6th part came out, I couldn't remember the choices I'd made. I couldn't remember what I'd done. I couldn't
that's always
remember
the thing with games,
the story, and all I did was rush through it just to finish it off. So
but I think it can work, and I think they've got a lot better.
But it does kind of work better with those sort of games. But
I think they've got better at that as well. They bring them out quicker. So
if everybody jumps on this bandwagon, then I won't be buying anything until 6 months later, and I hope I'm not the only one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be good if people send a message, but like you're saying, that hardcore, they're always gonna go for it, but they are getting the short end of the straw. people like me who are I wouldn't say a casual. Like I used to be really into it back in, the PS2, even PS3 era. But yeah, people like me who are more casual with it, we're the ones getting the best deal. We're the ones getting, all the good stuff with it. It's always the hardcore that gets screwed. It's sort of the same with Final Fantasy to a degree. I feel like they're going more towards trying to find new customers as opposed to. I mean, you shouldn't entirely go fan service with a game because that's not always, good for the game's longevity and health and whatnot. But I feel like it's trying to chase that new dollar as opposed to rewarding the hardcore.
Well, I've bought every
already...
game that's ever came out, every Final Fantasy game, but it's not going in a direction I like, and I know there's a lot of others.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I'm much more optimistic about Final Fantasy, but the battle system, it feels like everything else is going to be awesome. It's going to be the Final Fantasy you want, but the battle system's probably going to be the thing that drops it down for me from like a 9 or maybe even a 10 to like an 8 or at worst like a 7 or something. But I think it's going to be a really good game. But I don't think there's a lot of fan service to it, but it's catering to that new audience they're trying to capture, and like I said, they should do that to a degree. But it's always the hardcore that gets screwed over, really, isn't it? So. But yeah, it's a shame. So anywho, I think that's we've covered quite a lot there. What about you though, V? Have you got any thoughts on episodic content?
I haven't got like a massive amount of experience with them, to be honest, but from gathering from what you guys say about it, I just I agree with you totally. Like, why the hell would I want to wait like 2 months for a new chapter to a game? Like, some people don't have a lot of time to kind of like sit and binge, but when they do get that opening, they want to just smash through it because they've got that little time. They want to like take a full advantage. Or when I found like a proper gem of a game, I can't help but go, I can't wait to go play that game later. I can't wait, but they can't do that because they've got to wait so long. So
I think it's like Louise was saying. If you can find points in that series where there's apathy and you can't be bothered to go back to it. It's like you're not, because you're not in that hype anymore.
With games.
Yeah.
No. I
mean, I think it's also a thing of convenience because sometimes I don't really feel like playing games for like a 4 or 5 days even, and then other times I want to play 8 solid hours of a game or more. So not having that option would kind of annoy me to a degree. But like I said, it depends on the game. I think I can be more forgiving with this sort of story-based Telltale stuff. And I think with some games, some indie games that are more experimental, again, there might be more of an interest to go back to.
Yeah, you can understand where they're coming from, and like even with the big shots, you can see why they're doing it, but it doesn't make it okay. Like if they're just doing it for like a money thing, then like I know they've got a company to run and stuff, but it still sucks massively for the people that are like that really want like you said, the die-hard fans and stuff. It's kind of taking the piss out of their like loyalty almost. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
If the game's designed from the ground up to be episodic, like a lot of the Telltale and Life is Strange, they were built from the ground up to be episodic. Whereas AAA games that are chopped up to be episodic, that's often where it fails. They need to be built from the ground up as that's how we want to do it. I don't feel Hitman was that. I feel that Hitman was chopped up to be drip fed as a money or an experimentation thing, or because they were late with their development, not as opposed to it suited the game. It's what's best for the game. It's what's best for the gamer. And if they make even more money off the top of that, who gives a fuck? No one's going to complain. But if at the end of the day, if the consumer's the one's getting screwed, and and it's the company making more money, people aren't going to be pleased, and it's going to hurt the franchise as a whole going forward.
Well, yeah, what you're getting yourself into. You know that, all right, this is a game that looks good, but I'm going to have to wait for it, And then when the next one comes out, I know I'm going to have to wait for it, and the next one. But when you've been, like, for instance, how you were saying, like, even like Hitman and stuff like that, you've had the games where, like, you've been able to binge it and go, whatever, but then all of a sudden it's like, hang on a minute, like, this ain't fair.
Suddenly the rug's pulled from under you.
Yeah.
It's like
shady.
But the thing is, if there's only one thing you can say about it, and it's this: if you hate it, don't buy it, because it will carry on if you fund
Oh
it.
yeah,
It's simple.
Yeah.
If you put your money, if people
Protest
put their money,
with your money.
yeah, put your money where your mouth is. Suddenly they'll change their tune and realize in the future not to do these sorts of things. And like I'm saying, you know, I don't want to see games that aren't designed to be chopped up into pieces for whatever reason. But if they're designed from the ground up to be that way, I'm much more cool with it, because it's probably going to make more sense. And you know, the way that it's delivered and the way that you play it, it will be, you know, it will be much more sensible, and you'll have your reasons to go back and play it, as opposed to, you know, perhaps getting disinterested halfway through. So
Yeah. Well, who's gonna wait like when he was saying, who's gonna wait like 1, 2, 3 months before playing a new game? They're not gonna wait for it. Like, I'm the same with books. I can't multitask for books. You know, and it's the same for games. You get it all confused, and you want to pay attention to one storyline. So who's gonna wait that long before playing it?
and with all
they
the
are
games,
gonna lose out in that way.
with all the games that come out these days, there's a new game every week or couple of weeks. You know, it's like you're saying, multitasking. You're suddenly going to be like, well, oh, the new Destiny update comes out, or you know, this Doom's come out, or there's a beta next week, or you know, suddenly your interest, you're not as hyped for that anymore. You run off the hype train, and you know, like I said, you become disinterested. So it's always a risk, you know.
I don't know about you guys as well, but if I leave a game for a long time, I get real rusty with the buttons.
Yeah. It depends what sort of game.
Your level goes down.
You're always like, where the fuck am I? What was I doing?
Yeah, I do that
this
even after,
guy?
like, if I've not played for a day or two. I'm like, oh god, what the hell was I just doing?
I wouldn't say
like,
that bad,
you know,
but a couple of
but
weeks
you know what
and
I mean? Like, when
I can run into trouble.
Right. But no, it's a good point. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of like, oh, where was I? Or if you get stuck in a place or something like that, it's the same effect, really, isn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, no, not a fan at all.